In this episode, I discuss some of the difficulties of powered paragliding, plus I'm going to show you some of the mistakes I made along the way, which have ultimately led to me becoming a little bit better pilot than when I first began. And for those of you who like wildlife or like to hunt it, just as an added bonus, I'll show you this herd of wild deer that I came across while flying one day north of Baton Rouge. Here we go. I've had a lot of friends, coworkers, family members all asking me when I was going to make another video. And the truth is, I had to take a break from the video making because my goal is to be a better pilot. Now, when you get started in this sport of powered paragliding, it's one learning curve after another. Most of the time, I don't even film when I fly. I just look so forward to a day like this when I can get up into the sky. I think a squirrel just fell from a tree. I just get up in the air as quick as I can, have fun, come back down, go home. Every now and then I turn the GoPro on. So I fly as much as I can, I film here and there, and this video is a collection of some of the mistakes I've made. Some you've seen, some you haven't. Let's get into it. I did make a video about this. This is my first crash whenever I left my motor running. As I came in from my landing, I pulled down on my brakes and at the same time squeezed my throttle, which quickly propelled me into the ground, breaking my prop in the process. See, it's broken here. And on the other side, carbon fibers all split up down the side. Look at that. Now here I'm going to do a reverse launch. So instead of laying the wing out, tying into it, and running forward and dragging it up off of the ground, here I've got the wing laid out in front of me and I pull it into the air while I'm facing it. Then I spin around and run into my launch. Now when it's a little bit windy, you do a reverse launch. Keep that in mind. If there's a lot of wind, you want to be looking at your wing. That's going to be important later. As I watch this video now, there's a few things that I'm wondering about. The first thing is, you can see when I pull that wing up, I spin around, and before I go, it's good to make sure that your wing is stable and that your lines are clear, which obviously I took enough time to do. But if I had taken any more time, that wing probably would have collapsed and come down on me because there was some thermal activity happening. Which brings me to my next point. The other thing I'm wondering about is, why am I launching at this time of day? It looks like it's sometime in the midday, which is a bad time to launch, especially if you're a new pilot. But it's a bad time to launch because the thermal activities are at their highest. It's when wind is moving up and down, side to side. It's crazy. You can tell that there's some thermal activity because as I begin to run, I go over the road and then my left wingtip collapses in on me just a little bit. But that's because of the thermal activity. And the third thing that catches my attention on this launch is, why did I set up at this location and decide to try and move forward? Was I even concerned about the path ahead of me? So I should have laid out my wing much further back, but instead I chose this location, and now I've got to run through a small ditch over the paved road, and when I go over the paved road is when you'll see my wing collapse. Then I go through a bigger ditch, and that's when I almost ate it. I almost took a face full of dirt, but luckily you hear me let off of the throttle. I don't force myself into the ground. And somehow I'm able to keep it up. I run, it becomes a successful launch. The point is, this should have never happened, and I should have aborted right away, but I was so new and so concerned about getting up in the air that I didn't think about those other things along the way. Now, I made a video about this one as well. This is where I did a crash dive roll onto the tarmac. It's my best/worst crash landing yet to date, and I'll show you this one twice. I'm coming in for a landing, pulling down way too much on the left brake, sends me sliding into home. I broke my prop, scratched my cage, ripped my reserve chute pouch. It sucked. Here it is again. props are over 300 bucks a set, so I decided to try and repair these on my own. I thought it worked, but it didn't. Well, it's definitely not as good as new, but it's better than it was. I believe it's flyable. The only way to know is to go through the steps. The bottom line on this story is I will not be repairing my own props. I'll have redhead props out of Florida do that, or I'll just buy a new set. Now this is a clip you have not seen before. I was flying all by myself. I was at an airport, and when I left the ground, wind speeds were 6 miles an hour. I get up in the air, I fly around for a little while, and a storm moves into the area. Now I'm in a race to try and get back to the landing zone and beat the storm before it gets there ahead of me. I could see the storm was getting closer, and it was really tossing me around up there. You won't be able to tell that on the GoPro because of the motion stabilization, but it was moving me around a lot. I could feel the temperature drop, and then my main goal was just get on the ground and get there safely. Now here I'm headed east, and I was gonna land in the grassy field here. But the wind had now shifted and was now coming out of the north. Now whenever we land, we always want to be flying into the wind for our landing. So now I had to change my approach. I was flying east for my landing. Now I've got to go to the south and fly north for my landing.
Whoa, that was freaking cold. I just got blasted with a lot of cold air. Woo, it just got shifty. Just got shifty. Holy crap.
At this time, I'm still a brand new pilot. The highest wind speeds I should be flying out of is 10, maybe 12 miles an hour, and that's it. However, whenever I'm flying back, this storm had moved in. Wind speeds were now at 25 miles an hour. Now keep an eye on my windsock. And here you can see I come in for my landing like a helicopter. There's no flying in. I just came down. Up until this point, I was doing pretty good, I thought. My wing is now catching all of that wind, flying at 25 miles an hour. It picks me up off of my feet and lays me on my back. It drags me backwards and puts scratches on the parking lot almost 40 feet long.
Break him, break him. Come on, come on. Come on.
When my feet hit the ground, I should have immediately spun around, and that would have given me a much better chance of handling the wind and the wing. And just as I had said earlier, whenever we're in stronger winds, we always want to do a reverse launch. Well, now I know whenever I'm landing in stronger winds, I want to do kind of a reverse landing. I want to land, spin around, and then bring that wing down in front of me. So now that I'm turtled onto my back and dragging backwards, I knew what I wanted to do. I just did a very poor job of executing it. What I wanted to do was reach up and grab the B lines, which are those green lines right there. But instead, what I did was I reached up and I grabbed a fistful of whatever I could, and I started pulling it in. I'm trying to pull that wing in, and I'm trying to stop it from catching wind. But the bad thing is, because I grabbed those rear risers, all I did was help it hold wind more. So imagine that this is my wing, and wind is flowing in to my wing. If I had grabbed the middle lines, I would have basically allowed that wing to fold like this, and wind would have flowed over the top and the bottom. But instead what I did was I grabbed the rear risers, and basically what I made it do was catch every bit of wind that was coming at it, which helped me continue to slide on my back.
Break him, break him. Come on, come on. Come on.
This is the final segment of the video, and what I learned here is that if you're going to use equipment, you want to make sure that it functions properly. I didn't have the microphone cable plugged into the camera, so of course audio cuts in and out through the whole thing, and when you give a listen, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Here I use the wind to lay out my wing, and you can see that the tip of my wing is still curled inside of my lines. Thankfully, I saw that before I tried to take off. So I was able to adjust it and get up into the air. and you get a really nice view of all the trees in winter. It looks great. As I'm flying along, I come across a group of deer, probably about 20, and I say that because half of them ran off in one direction and the other half ran through the trees that I was flying over. So when I get over to the other side, I'm able to lock in on one shot and I can count 11 of them.
See if I can get these guys. They're all running through the trees right here below me. We are on a safari. Oh my gosh!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 deer in one shot. That's a lot of deer.
Look at all these deer!
So I fly around and all of the scenery looks gorgeous, but this is what I did wrong. I did not check out my landing area before I took off. I just took off, went flying around, and assumed that my landing was going to be just as good as my takeoff. It turns out that the rain had saturated this clay soccer field the weeks before I got there, so when I came in for landing, it was really slippery. I come in for my landing and my feet slide through the clay, and somehow I managed to stay upright.
Slid on the ground, buddy.
But you can see the trails from my feet skidding through the clay. Either way, it turned out to be a good flight, it was a good day, and I've had a good time making this video. I hope you've enjoyed this as well. If you have, be sure to share, like, subscribe. Thank y'all, love y'all, God bless.